current climate of AAA gaming is depressing. Empty, uninspired open-world games, derivative sequels to franchises that should have called it quits years ago, season passes, DLC, etc., etc. Look, you know the deal by now, and I'm not gonna beat this dead horse any further into the ground. What I do want to talk about, though, are indie video games. Independent video game developers and small B studios have been holding it down the past couple of decades, putting out video games with actual gameplay experiences worth playing. Sure, there are plenty of uninspired, cozy farm sim games in the indie space too, but for every uninspired Stardew Valley knockoff, there's an amazing platformer, racing game, or arena shooter. I want to specifically talk about a couple of indie spiritual successors to classic video games from the 16-bit era, 64-bit era, and beyond. Now, this isn't an end-all be-all comprehensive list of all indie games that are spiritual successors or all indie games that are worth playing. These are just a couple that I highly recommend myself. Most, if not all of the games I will discuss in this video are also playable on low-end computers if you have a potato PC like I do. All of these games are under $20 as well, so they are on the affordable side if you're looking for a budget title. With all of that out of the way, let's get into this. Slipstream is a racing game developed by Anstore Games. It's a successor to the classic Sega racing game Outrun, developed by Sega AM2. Slipstream modernizes the Outrun gameplay formula with tighter controls, faster game feel, stylish sprite work, and a more forgiving difficulty curve than the original Sega title. If you've never heard of Outrun, or Slipstream by extension, think of it more of a driving game than a racing game. In Slipstream, you race down a highway while taking branching paths until you reach the finish, as opposed to doing laps on a track in something like Mario Kart. Slipstream feels like it was ripped straight out of the arcade era. The controls in Slipstream are butter. The drifting mechanics are a little tricky at first, but once you get the hang of it, it feels so nice to perfectly execute a drift around a corner. All you gotta do is let off the right trigger, press the left trigger, and then press and hold the right trigger again to execute a drift. You'll get the hang of it in no time. There's also automatic drifting if you don't want to learn to drive manual, but come on, that's no fun. I find it charming how almost all of the roads in Slipstream are named after Sonic levels. In particular, there are quite a few Sonic R references, like Radical City, and as a huge fan of Sonic R, this makes me very happy. No, seriously, do not sleep on Sonic R. It's a good game, but maybe I'll do a Sonic R review at some point in the future. Slipstream is a game that not only pays homage to its Outrun origins, it modernizes and polishes the formula to such a razor-sharp degree that I don't think I can ever go back to the original Outrun. Don't get it twisted, Outrun is a legendary arcade title, and Yu Suzuki is one of the unsung heroes of gaming in my opinion. But Slipstream feels so nice to play, and it is such a loving tribute to the original Outrun that I think it ousts it in every way. Definitely pick this game up if you're looking for some chill driving vibes. Zodiac is like if you took Space Harrier and Star Fox and threw them in a blender. Before I actually talk about Zodiac itself, I just want to say that I love the recent trend of low-poly indie games that have that sort of 5th generation aesthetic. You know, Sega Saturn, PlayStation, N64, but unlike a lot of the games of the 5th generation, these modern low-poly indie titles run at a decent frame rate with higher resolution and a greater draw distance. Anyway, back on topic, Zodiac is an on-rail shoot-'em-up developed by Monkey Games and published by Pixel Jam. It's pretty obvious that this game is very much inspired by Star Fox. You pilot an R-Wing type spaceship and blow up oncoming enemies. There's a couple of different mechanics that set Zodiac apart from Star Fox though. For instance, this game has more of an emphasis on locking onto multiple targets and blowing them up, not unlike the Sky Chase Zone levels in Sonic Adventure 1. Not only that, but aesthetically, I think Exodiac has a bit of a Sega vibe going on. Of course, there are the aforementioned Space Harrier bonus levels, but also I think that the super saturated color palette and texture work, the checkerboard textures and whatnot, give this game more of a Sega feel than the muted color palette of Star Fox. I firmly believe the original Star Fox on Super Nintendo is an all-time classic. What Argonaut Software was able to achieve with the Super Nintendo hardware back in 1993 was incredible, but unfortunately, Star Fox hasn't aged very gracefully due to the really poor draw distance and the scuffed frame rate. I still enjoy the game, but as somebody who didn't grow up with it back then, I grew up with Star Fox 64, me personally, Star Fox 1, I don't feel compelled to revisit it much nowadays. Now, Exodiac benefits heavily from the 16:9 aspect ratio and the better performance. This game is like if you took Star Fox 1 on the Super Nintendo and supercharged it. And can I just say that the music is impeccable. A lot of these tracks remind me of a 16-bit Konami game. Give it a listen. Now, unfortunately, I do have some reservations with Exodiac. Let me preface what I'm about to say with this. The following complaints could entirely be skill issue on my part. I do love shoot-em-ups, but I've never been particularly great at them. So again, this could all be skill issue, yada yada yada. But here's what I don't dig about Exodiac. First of all, your missiles feel entirely useless. Half the time when I fired a missile at a boss or at enemies, it would just fly way off into the distance and blow up, destroying nothing. In Star Fox 64 and in the original Star Fox, smart bombs were a quick get-out-of-jail-free card, but here in Exodiac, I could never consistently land a missile on anything. Also, enemies just have too much health across the board. It makes sense for a boss or a mini-boss to be tanky and have a lot of health, but the small grunt-like enemies should be gunned down with 1 or 2 blasts. Finally, my last complaint, the hitboxes are a little scuffed. It bears repeating, but this could just be skill issue, but it felt like a lot of my shots were just missing enemies when I could have sworn that I was hitting them dead on. The reason I bring up these complaints is because Exodiac is still in early access, so it would be nice if the developers kept picking away at this game and polishing it. Overall though, Exodiac is a great time in spite of my few reservations with it. You play as a monkey lady and blast the shit out of enemies in a spaceship. What more could you want? This game is only $12 on Steam, and I've seen it go on sale quite frequently. Definitely check it out if you're jonesing for some more Star Fox. Super Sammy Roll is a platformer developed by Sonzai Games, and I can best describe it as a blend of Marble Madness, Super Monkey Ball, and Super Mario 3D World. You take control of this dinosaur fella named Sammy as you roll, bounce, and fling your way through a variety of levels. The developers get a lot of mileage out of Sammy's moveset. You can grab onto objects with your tongue and fling yourself, sort of like Chameleon Twist for the N64. You have a bounce move, quite like the bounce bracelet from Sonic Adventure 2, but the main thrust of the gameplay of Super Sammy Roll is rolling around utilizing the physics and inertia to get from the starting point of a level to the finish. There's a decent bit of customization too. You can purchase accessories for Sammy with coins and raspberries. The raspberries, which act as a collectible MacGuffin, are hidden in most of the levels in the game. You can change Sammy's color palette, which kind of reminds me of Putt Putt Travels Through Time. Shoutouts to Humongous Entertainment Games. I'm just kind of a sucker for cosmetics in platformers. Just being able to put on custom clothes or change my color palette, I love that shit. Speaking of coins, not only do the coins function as currency, but they give you an additional second for each coin collected within a level. I love this mechanic. It gives the coins more purpose than just being currency to buy accessories. Super Sammy Roll is flat out a great time. Much like Slipstream, the controls and physics can take a bit of getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, it's a lot of fun. You can really schmooze through these levels. The music is catchy, the level design is brisk and fast-paced, the characters are adorable. I love this game, and I'm excited for the sequel coming out. Cursed Castilla is like Ghosts and Goblins without the testicular torture. If I hadn't known any better, I would have assumed that this game was an actual title from the 90s, for like the MSX or the PC-98 or some obscure console or home computer at the time. Cursed Castilla is a side-scroller by Loco Malito that is very clearly paying homage to Capcom's Ghosts and Goblins. Unlike most entries in the Ghosts and Goblins series, Cursed Castilla is a lot more forgiving and less frustrating than Capcom's perennial CBT simulator. The controls feel a lot better, first of all. Your jump arc is less stiff than in Ghosts and Goblins. The enemy spawning feels less random as well, but I can't confirm if it actually is less random or if it's just my imagination. It definitely feels more telegraphed, and that is the word that I would best describe Cursed Castilla with: telegraphed. You can learn the spawn points of the enemies. You can master the level layouts. Item drops are frequent, health drops are abundant, and infinite continues lend to a far fairer gameplay experience than Ghosts and Goblins. Have I said that enough? Don't get it twisted though, this is still a challenging game. Don't let your guard down. For me personally though, the biggest difference between Cursed Castilla and Ghosts and Goblins is the vibe and the atmosphere and the tone. Cursed Castilla is more grim, more gory, less cartoony than Ghosts and Goblins. It takes itself a lot more seriously, and the plot actually delves into some dark places. I wasn't really expecting this. I was definitely caught off guard by some of the events of the game. No spoilers here though. There are a ton of references to Spanish mythology and folklore too, which I'm sure most of these references are going over my stupid North American head, but they make for cool enemy and boss design for sure. But overall, Cursed Castilla is more harrowing, more grim than the goofy, colorful Ghosts and Goblins. And this isn't a dig at Ghosts and Goblins, by the way. I love those games, even though I've never been able to beat most of them. Cursed Castilla is a fantastic platformer. It pays homage to Ghosts and Goblins while still having a strong sense of identity that is entirely its own. If you're gonna play one game from this list, make it Cursed Castilla. I've been on a bit of a Jet Set Radio kick. I streamed Jet Set Radio not too long ago in its entirety, and I played a little bit of Jet Set Radio Future here and there. While I love everything about Jet Set Radio, the style, the soundtrack, the character design, the art direction, playing the game can be an exercise in frustration. I recently got my hands on Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which is a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio pretty much in every way. Some would even say that it's derivative of Jet Set Radio, but I don't mind this because you could argue that it does everything better than Jet Set Radio. Now, pause real quick. I actually haven't played Bomb Rush Cyberfunk yet. My friend Azura, however, has, so I'm going to pass it over to her to give you a brief rundown and assessment of why Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is dope.
Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. This beautifully stylized game by Team Reptile has an immaculate vibe that's easy to fall in love with. It feels like a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio. It takes its predecessor's criticisms into consideration and builds up from it without sacrificing its style. It pays plenty of homage through its phenomenal art direction and music. The main story takes place in New Amsterdam, where you play as Red, named after his red cyber head. Your main goal is to find your human head in order to regain your lost memories. You also plan on taking control of all the turf in the city. This is known as going all city, and you're going to do so with the assistance of the Bomb Rush crew. I won't get into any spoilers, as this is a wonderful game with a layered story, and you should definitely play it. The flow of gameplay feels fluid, kinetic, and satisfying. It's easy to find yourself cruising around and enjoying how good the movement feels, or exploring every inch of the city to find all the prime graffiti spots. The main gameplay loop involves spray painting areas to gain rep, boss fights, and point battles against rival groups to take over their turf. Just be careful though, as you tag spots you gain GTA-style heat and might have to fight off the cops. Some of these combat sections can feel like they drag out a little bit, but the intriguing story with the twists and turns that it takes will likely suck you into the game, much like it did with me. Rather than the complex inputs that you'd find in the Tony Hawk or Skate series of games, Bomb Rush keeps it simple and straightforward in order to help you feel the moment and look cool doing so. You'll also get a boost pack that has flexible use and will add extra speed or push to your jumps. got a few modes of transport: skateboards, roller skates, and BMX bikes. Each plays a bit differently, and there are special sections that only each respective set of wheels can do. There are tons of tricks you can do both on and off your wheels. Transitioning between the two feels very smooth, and it doesn't disturb any of your movement. Each character you can play as isn't locked to their default vehicle, and there are unlockable color customizations for each. The stylized characters of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk are all decently unique in their aesthetic, but play fairly similarly on each respective set of wheels. Also, I love Solus, and he's the best character in the game in my opinion. If you haven't heard the Bomb Rush Cyberpunk soundtrack, you should go listen to it. It's phenomenal. The music elevates the experience of playing this game to an astronomical level, and it's awesome. It even has some music composed by Hideki Naganuma. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is a game that wears its influence on its sleeve, but rises above and beyond it. I know I've glazed this game this whole time, but Team Reptile has put so much love into it, and it really, really shows. I would highly recommend checking out Bomb Rush as well as their other games. They're amazing developers.
Thanks for tuning into today's video. Hopefully one of the games in this video strikes your interest. And thank you Azura for joining me today. Keep supporting indie developers, keep supporting B Studios, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.